Hello, hello, honeys, and welcome back to the Beesness. We've got all your Arts World headlines curated by yours truly from the week of July 7th through the 13th. And a quick note before we get started, I'm very happy to announce that we have a new sound editor who will hopefully be working with us on all episodes going forward. His name is Chris Meinhold, and I'm very grateful for the opening music that he has created on our behalf. We also officially became an LLC last week, Highbrow Honey Podcasting Network LLC. So very exciting things happening, all due to your support and listenership. Thank you very much for that. And to that point, let's go ahead and get started right away with announcements and discoveries, because last week actually did not provide any real follow-ups. Our first headline for today, Philly's Avenue of the Arts announced that it will soon receive $100 million in streetscape upgrades starting next year. The improvements will eventually extend 10 blocks along South Broad Street from City Hall to Washington Avenue and will not only include basics such as new landscaping and lighting, but will also feature public art and outdoor performance spaces. The beautification project will be led by the Avenue of the Arts Incorporated, the nonprofit that develops and markets that cultural district, and they are notably starting with the block between Spruce and Pine Streets outside the Kimmel Center for the Performing Arts. Our sources for today speculated that they have chosen to begin here to ease local tensions and concerns about the future of that block after the sudden closure of the University of the Arts and of the PAFA, both longtime fixtures there and both closures being previous Beesness stories of ours. Regardless, they expect Phase 1 to be done before the 250th birthday of the US of A. Last week also saw the uncovery of a marble statue of Hermes from an ancient Roman sewer. Found in the Bulgarian village of Rupit near the Greek border, the 7-foot-tall, very well-preserved statue was found during excavation work at the former city of Heraclea Sintika. Heraclea Sintika was founded by Philip II of Macedon between 356 BCE and 339 BCE, but was destroyed by an earthquake in 388 CE. Though remarkable in and of itself, this rare and exciting discovery of a high-quality intact statue, there's also some excitement surrounding next steps. A special structure will use a crane to lift the statue and bring it to the History Museum in Petric, where it will receive restorative and conservation care, then go on display. Even more fascinating is the context behind the burial of the statue in this sewer. Bulgarian archaeologists believe that it was done so carefully, but they remain undecided on why. But they have two main theories. First, it could have been a symbolic rejection of pagan practices, which was on the outs due to the rise of Christianity, or it could have been done as an effort to preserve the statue. Scientific director of the excavation, Lyudmil Vagalinsky, and his team think that residents placed it in the sewer following the 388 earthquake because Christianity had recently become the Roman Empire's official religion, and pagan artifacts, so-called, such as these, had become a frequent target of vandalism. Hopefully, future studies will provide more clues. We additionally heard that an ancient temple and theater, 3,500 years older than Machu Picchu, was discovered in Peru. The announcement was made in a press release by the Field Museum of Chicago on Wednesday. Archaeologists associated with the museum had begun studying a new site, La Otra Banda, Cerro Las Animas, in June of last year because the local government had alerted them to looting that had been taking place near the northern Peruvian town of Zanya. The archaeologists excavated a plot of roughly 33 by 33 feet, but at 6 feet of depth already found signs of ancient mud and clay walls. Head of the team, Muro Inonyan, said that the archaeologists found a section of a large temple, but that the most exciting find was a small theater with a backstage area, a staircase leading to a stage-like platform. So Arts are as old as humans, guys. It is our thing. Of course, we care about this headline because that reason, but also the figures and the carved designs here resemble other images of mythological creatures that date to the initial period around 2000 to 900 BC. This allows for the dating of the site and the works. And as our headline mentioned, it is older than Machu Picchu by about 3,500 years. The latter was done in the 15th century. And it predates the pre-Inca cultures of Moche and Nazca, giving clues to even older societies. And on a bit of a sadder note, we have two obituaries this week. First, Hope Alswang, who passed away very unexpectedly June 11th in Providence, Rhode Island, after a brief illness at 77. Alswang's very notable for her long career across museums, 50 years in total. She served as a director of 3 museums across the Northeast, plus as the director for the museum program of the New York State Council on the Arts. Our other brief obituary for Bill Viola, who passed on July 12th at his home in Long Beach, California. He was 73, and the cause was complications related to Alzheimer's disease. Viola is best known for his decades-long engagement with video and being a crucial part of establishing the medium as a contemporary art form. Last week's auction sales events headlines had a lot of crossover with legal and institutional, so let's just take it bit by bit. First, a new exhibition of lanterns lit up New York City's Garment District and will continue to through January 2025. The ornate fixtures are part of a new public art installation titled New Start, New Hope, created by local artist Shin Song, and features 135 of them along the city streets of 3 Broadway plazas. They are intended to serve as a visual sign for an optimistic future. Our source for today, Time Out, said they, quote, seek to provide pedestrians with a moment of stillness and light, literally, end quote. Lighted in greens, reds, and blues, each has its own intricate patterns, some resembling flowers, others diamonds, others shamrocks, and much more. We also saw headlines that Jim Carrey is sending his collection of art and modern designs to auction. The items will be featured in Bonham, LA's upcoming modern design and art auction on July 25th and will include collection pieces acquired over nearly 30 years. Carey has put forward a total of 35 lots, some of which include art pieces like Adam Kurtzman's 2004 Pair of Hands and Martin C. Herbst's 1965 stainless steel work sphere. Others are a little different. For example, an Alexander McQueen rug estimated to go for between $15,000 and $20,000. Said Carey of the sale, quote, it's been my very good fortune to be surrounded by many of the finer things in life, and I'm always gratified when it's time to let them go so that others may enjoy them as well, end quote. The article went on to note some success he's had as a political cartoonist and NFT artist in the last few decades. This next headline is where our legal crossover sort of began. Wright artifacts from the Price Tower, valued at over $125,000, have come up for sale in a Dallas gallery. This headline becomes shocking really only when you understand the background, so let's cover it briefly. Price Tower is the only one that Frank Lloyd Wright ever completed. It's 19 stories in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. In April of 2024, the local owners of Price Tower sold an undisclosed amount of historic Frank Lloyd Wright and Bruce Goff artifacts from the building. This was concerning because it went against the promises that these new owners, Cynthia and Anthem Blanchard, made upon taking ownership of it in March of 2023, that they would invest $10 million into the tower. Instead, according to AOL reporting, Blanchard and her team, quote, saddled the tower with additional debt and alleged promises of get-rich-quick schemes, end quote. The firm, 20C Designs, was offered their pick of archival plus museum display items from the tower's collection despite the promises that Blanchard's had made to preserve its legacy. So the fact that these items are now up for sale by a Texas-based gallery who had bought them from 20C Designs is extra salt in the wound. The Blanchards have refused to comment on how much those items were sold for originally, whether there are plans to sell more museum pieces, but a quoted expert familiar with these sort of artifact transactions estimated that the sale prices would have been from between a half to a fourth of the listed price, meaning that the original sale price of the objects would have been less than $250,000. It was the executive director of Price Tower Arts Center, Donna Keffer, who brought this all to light because her concerns about legacy preservation remain her own top priority. We'll be keeping an eye on this situation as it continues to develop, honeys. And though we had 4 other crossover stories that we could have included this episode, we're going to have to save them for the honey drop because we are once again getting to be at that time. Prioritizing a little bit here, last week was full of headlines after a Shazia Sikander sculpture was beheaded at the University of Houston, and lots of drama followed. The 18-foot-tall bronze monument to women and justice is made up of a female figure with braided hair that forms a pair of horns and who wears a lacy collar in allusion to ones worn by late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The work was installed in a plaza at the U of H after 5 months of display with critical acclaim at Madison Square Park in New York City, but it was vandalized last week following previous protests by right-wing groups. UH responded to their protests by canceling planned opening and talk events, plus shelving and accompanying video work by Sikander. While these groups called for protests to keep the satanic abortion idol out of Texas, it's extremely important to note that Sikander's artist statement about the work contains absolutely no mention of Satanism. Instead, as she had told the publication Art in America earlier this year, quote, "The ram's horns are universal symbols of strength and wisdom. There is nothing satanic about them," end quote. The beheading apparently happened in the morning of July 8th while the campus was busy with the harsh weather conditions, the power outages due to Hurricane Beryl, and attention was elsewhere. We care a lot about this story because of this extreme action. Beheading is a very dark, very personal, and very final action to take, even against art. It's very sad that it happened, especially to this piece, but it's also sad that we all know why. I was fascinated not only by Sikander's response, but U of H's as well. Many are criticizing the university for its decision to not release footage of the crime and simply rushing to find conservators to repair it, this cover it up sort of approach. Sikander, on the other hand, responded in New York Times that she didn't want to repair or conceal, but rather to, quote, expose, leave it damaged, make a new piece, and many more, end quote. As of July 11th, the university has decided officially to go with this decision. And our very last story for the day, the earliest known photograph of a U.S. lady was acquired last week by the National Portrait Gallery. The image is a quarter-plate daguerreotype of former First Lady Dolly Madison, wife of 4th U.S. President James Madison, and dated to about 1846. The photo, taken by artist and entrepreneur John Plum Jr., shows the trailblazing First Lady when she was in probably her late 70s. The photographer's own history is pretty significant. Plum was an English immigrant who came to America in 1821, began photography professionally around the 1840s, and established studios in more than a dozen cities before selling his business in 1847. He's in fact best known for the portrait of Madison and the earliest extant image of the U.S. Capitol. Circling back to the subject, though, I remember learning about Dolly Madison as the first White House lady badass. It's widely acknowledged that she is the inventor of the First Lady role, as her wits and charm helped her husband create lots of strategic political alignments and allies. And it was exciting to me to hear about this. The gallery bought the photograph for $456,000 at a Sotheby's auction of books, manuscripts, and Americana on June 28th, which was more than 6 times the lot's highest estimates. The funds were provided by both private and public endowment sources. The acquisition is really cool in part because daguerreotypes are really cool. They were the first widely available photographic process invented by its namesake, Louis Daguerre, in 1839. It's a treasure in many senses. The Secretary of the Smithsonian, in fact, Lonnie G. Bunch III, said in a reported statement, quote, "This artifact will provide the Smithsonian another opportunity to tell a more robust American story and illuminate the vital role women like Madison have played in the nation's progress," end quote. And can't think of a better use for the image myself. Okay, honeys, that is it for this week. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your listenership. And I hope you enjoy our new music as well as your weekends. And until we talk again, take care of yourselves. This podcast and this episode were created, produced, hosted, and researched, as well as fact-checked by yours truly, Celia Bugno. It was edited by our brand new sound engineer and producer of our intro music, Chris Meinhold. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on all of your favorite streaming platforms as well as your social medias.